What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. It's JT. Welcome back to JT Talks Jobs. This is the live show where we get your career problems solved, or at least we try really hard to. Anyways, we are broadcasting. Gosh, I can't talk this morning. We're having operator error here. Just for the record, coming clean. Stuff's probably going to go crazy. I was told that Mercury is in retrograde, which probably explains a lot right now. Anyways, we are broadcasting live on a whole bunch of places. So shout out to all of you on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, and our latest edition, TikTok. Hey, everyone. So a couple of things before we get started. Just remember to always follow the hashtag JT Talks Jobs. That's our hashtag. It's the one we use so that you can always find us. It's really easy. For example, if you're over on LinkedIn, they just started hashtagging. Welcome to the 2000s. And you can follow that hashtag there. You'll be able to get all the recordings if you miss a session, plus any of the other free career content we're putting out. We always hashtag it. That's how you find us on all the different platforms. And then, of course, if you follow me on LinkedIn or you follow us at Work It Daily on YouTube, if you take a look here on LinkedIn, you'll get instant notifications when we go live. Same thing on TikTok. So by the way, shout out to all the TikTokers. Thank you so much. We broke 1,000 followers this week, which means we're able to broadcast live and give you free career advice. So for all of you that are brand new, we're so glad you came to the party. And let me just tell you the mission of myself, my coworkers, and Work It Daily. We are trying to help 1 million people grow their careers. We believe that everybody is a business of one. We need to stop thinking like employees, start thinking like business owners. We also believe that you're in business for yourself, but you don't have to be in business by yourself. So we think if we can start a movement, if we can bring 1 million people together under Work It Daily and they're all helping each other grow their careers, that's power. That's currency. That's how we're going to change things. So that's what this is about. This is why we broadcast 3 times a week on all these platforms and why we're giving out as much free advice as we can on all the social media platforms. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. But today is fun because we just started this. We have our own live career Q&A session where people are able to dial in. So we're going to try to get some of you live on the show today. We did it last week. It was incredible. It was like the most amazing day to experience that because I love actually talking to people. But we also take your questions online. So you can post them in the chat. And my coworkers are pulling those from all the different sources and popping it in over here so that I can see you and I can answer the question for you. So if you don't want to be on camera, that is totally okay. You don't have to be on audio. You certainly can post your question here as well. So usually I have a topic that I'm covering specifically, but today we just decided to go, freestyle any questions that come in and we'll take it from there. So no topic, as long as it's career related, is off limits today. So feel free to start that. In the meanwhile, we have our very first live caller of the day. Her name is Rosalind. So let's make sure that Rosalind's here. Rosalind, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, and I can hear you. Hey there, girl. Welcome to the program. What's going on? What am I answering for you today?
I have several questions.
Excellent. Bring it on.
So how do you get a feeling about an employer's communication style during an interview, and what kind of questions can you ask? Sorry, I'm trying to stay in the picture here.
Yeah. So that's a wonderful question. The fact that you're asking that, it already shows me that you're next level in your interview skills. So I love that. When you're in an interview and you're thinking about the communication style, it means you're trying to think about what's it going to be like to work with this person. And one of the things that we have people do is take something called a personality quiz, or we call it the interaction style assessment test, lots of fancy terms for it. I know that the team is kind of showing you, if you go to our resources page, folks, it's workitdaily.com/resources. That's where you can access this quiz and you take it online. It's 20 questions and it tells you personality types. So why am I telling you this? Because Rosalind, there are lots of different personality types, but we've simplified it down to 4, and they are commander, contemplator, empathizer, and energizer. And the way you get classified as one of these folks has to do with your expressiveness. So facial expressions, eye contact, hand gestures, voice tone, those sorts of things, as well as what you share. So I'm going to give you the 2-second version of this. The pros: if you're a commander, you're a high achiever, you're a good multitasker, and you love being in charge and taking control and getting things done, right? So you're super reliable. If you're a contemplator, you're very, very careful with your words. You're very diplomatic. You're hardworking. You're not, loud or boisterous. You kind of put your head down and get your work done. And people really appreciate it because, again, you, like the commander, are super consistent. On the energizer side, that's a person that really knows how to rally a team, just like the name, gets everybody, pumped up and good to go, is a great team leader, really helps set the vibe and the mood, and is very quick, can make quick decisions, can move fast. And then an empathizer, these people are just usually amazing in customer service. They have this ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes, really see what that person is experiencing, and be able to be relatable to them. So you can see that they're all great to be. And we have a little bit of each of those in us, folks, but we tend to have a dominant style. So the reason that I'm explaining all that to you, Rosalind, is that when you're in an interview, there are usually some tells. So if you were in an interview with a commander, and I invite everyone to jump in and try to guess what that's like, a commander is going to tend to be more reserved in their body language. You might see them sort of more controlled, and they're going to be more direct because they want to get to the point, they want to get results. A contemplator is also going to be reserved, shares that same quality. So a lot of times if you're seeing somebody isn't moving around a lot, is very controlled, you're able to narrow it down and go, this is either a commander or a contemplator. The key difference there is the commander is going to have kind of a quicker tone and more direct, right? Whereas the contemplator will tend to hold back, be a bit more thoughtful and reserved in what they say, very measured, very tactful, if that makes sense. Now flip to the other side. You've got somebody who's more expressive. Well, that's either going to be an empathizer or an energizer because they tend to be more expressive. The energizer, faster tone, higher energy level, right? You're going to feel that. The empathizer, again, slower tone, and more focused on, is everyone feeling okay? So when you go into an interview and you start having a conversation, look at the small talk. Does the person get right down to business and say, okay, let's get this show on the road. Let's start doing this. Probably a commander. If it's a person sits down and they're kind of quiet and you're like, gee, they're kind of formulating their thoughts and asking their questions, probably a contemplator. If the person's really smiley, welcoming you in, asking you a lot of small talk and getting things going, it's an energizer. And if the person's making sure, do you need water? Are you all set? Is everything good? That's an empathizer. So folks, once you know the 4 styles and once you know what your style is, it's very important that you understand the other styles so that you can recognize when you're dealing with somebody different than yourself. A lot of you have probably heard that a very effective technique is something called mimicking. So Rosalind, if you were to go into an interview and you start to recognize that person, I'm not suggesting that you be, disingenuous or inauthentic or try to pretend. But what I am telling you is that you should recognize this person will feel better about you if you are able to mimic a little bit of what they're doing. So if they lean in, lean in. If they smile a lot, try to smile a bit more. If their energy and their pace is a little faster, try to pick up your own pace, right? Versus if you go in and they're a lot slower, more reserved, and you tend to be faster, take a deep breath, sit on your hands, calm things down. Just recognize who you're communicating with. Now, the second part to your question was what questions to ask. So there's so many great questions you can ask. And again, if you go over to our resources page, folks, we actually have a PDF you can download that talks about the most common questions you're going to get and also gives you some insight into some questions that you can ask. But for me, I categorize them in 3 ways, Rosalind. So questions around the person themselves. Remember, this is a human being. So let's ask them things like, how did you come to work for the company? And what do you love most about working here? Those would be connection. And that's really, really important. The second thing would be around the job itself and understanding how they would measure your value. So things like, what's the single most important thing that this job is going to do that will have a positive impact on the company, right? And how will you measure my success? How will you know that I'm doing a good job? How will I know that I'm doing a good job and exceeding your expectations? You could even ask kind of an opposite question. Tell me about the last person that didn't succeed here. What did they do wrong? How did they fail, right? So now we're trying to understand how they're going to measure value. And then the last one is where you start to talk about where potentially you might not be 100% fit. So you might ask things like, I'm sure you're interviewing a lot of qualified candidates. Is there anything about my candidacy right now that you wish I had maybe more experience in? Is there anything maybe I missed in telling you that isn't kind of checking a box off the list that you're looking for? So you can ask that question quite politely and start to understand and figure out if you've missed anything so that you have a chance while you're still in the interview to actually give them the answers they need. It's probably one of the things that's most frustrating to job seekers. They leave and then they hear, well, you didn't move to the next round because we didn't get a sense that you had enough of this experience. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, had you told me that, I could have told you about all my experience in that area. But now it's too late. You can't go back and say, wait, I have that experience. Nobody wants to hear that. If they've made their decision, they've made their decision. So that's why being able to ask some exploratory questions about how you're doing so far in the process is really key. And then, of course, one last thing you always want to ask there, what is the next step in the process? Never, ever, ever leave an interview without asking that question, because otherwise you're going to go back and wonder, should I call them? Are they going to call me? What's going on? You want them to give you some framework so that you can manage your expectations and follow up appropriately. Did that make sense? Yes?
Oh, yes, it made sense. I just have a couple other questions.
Bring it on.
Related to that. When I asked what kind of questions you ask, I totally understand what you're saying, but I was just wondering if there was different questions or different ways of asking the questions to an to the hiring person, based on their personality type. So based on.
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh my gosh, I see where you're going with that. Brilliant, Rosalind. So, yes, you definitely can. And I think it's more of an advanced concept. So if you think about it, if you're talking to a commander, they're all about the return on the investment. So I would dial more of your questions towards, how are you going to measure my effectiveness? What's keeping you up at night? What is the one or two things this job can do right out of the gate to take something off your plate? How are we going to make your life easier in this role? Questions around that is getting to the pain point and the problem that this job is going to solve. And that commander is really interested in that. So I would go more towards that direction, right? With energizers, it's going to be more about, tell me more about what you love about this job. What do you value most? What are you looking for in a candidate? Because they're going to want to talk to you about the personality traits. Same thing with the empathizer. The empathizer, you're going to ask, well, tell me, how would I make your job easier? What's important to you? What are you looking for in a good candidate? The questions for those two, because they're more, again, expressive, the questions should be presented around this idea of, what do you look for in a person? Versus on the contemplator and the commander side, it's more of, what are you looking for in results? Do you see the difference? Because they measure differently. Contemplators and commanders are more fact-based, logical numbers. Empathizers and energizers are more emotion, connection, bond.
Okay.
And so if you can tailor your questions that way, it'll work better. Good question, by the way.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I usually ask at an interview is, one of the questions I ask is about hiring, like the hiring process, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious. I've had many times where they say, "Oh, we'll call back." Like, they have a plan to call back on a certain day, and I understand if they don't call back on that day, things happen. But if they don't call back within a couple days of the day they said, is that a sign that maybe that's someone that I don't want to be working with? I'm just trying to understand, because it's happened lots, and I'm in the process of waiting to hear back from somebody who said they'd call back on Monday. That was their hope. It's now Thursday, and I did email them yesterday just to say follow up, and I'm still very interested. But it concerns me because in the city I'm living in, which I'm not going to say, it happens a lot. And so I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. So it's not just you, Rosalind. It's happening to everybody, and it's higher than ever. And there's a really good reason for that, folks. And this is something that people do not understand, that I am preaching about these days. Right now is the most competitive time ever for you to be looking for a job. And people say, how is that possible? Isn't it the lowest unemployment rate? Aren't they seeking talent? Yes, but also in an economy like this right now, everybody thinks the grass is greener someplace else. So people who are in great jobs and really have no business leaving them are trying to find out, should I look at something else? Almost feeling obligated to go out on interviews so that they don't find out that they missed out. What that does is flood the market. I'm talking to recruiters all the time. We actually have, a recruit club, and they say things like, I used to get 50 applicants. Now I'm getting 1,000. No joke. So they have to go through all those applicants. As a result, Rosalind, where in the past they might be okay with bringing in 2 people to interview and picking one, now they feel a sense of obligation that they interview at least 5 or 10 people, because there's all this choice and they don't want to miss out. So what we're seeing is that hiring processes are taking longer because of that. So they're going to say to you, we're going to try to get back to you on Monday. Then there's feedback. Then there's other people to coordinate for interviews. They don't want to just message you and say, hey, we don't have any news. They should. I do believe that. I mean, a really good company, really good recruiters will keep you in the know all along. But most are super busy and thinking no news is good news. I'll tell you when I have something. And then a week passes. Meanwhile, every minute that passes feels like a day to you. An hour feels like a month, right? But to them, a week feels like a day. And it's a big hiring decision, and you're going to be a significant investment, right? You all are businesses of one trying to get hired for thousands of dollars. So nobody rushes in the final stage to hire because they want to make sure they're making the right decision. So I wouldn't read too much into it, other than they are probably still really in the decision-making process and looking at other candidates. I think waiting till Thursday and sending a note and saying, it's really important. I tell people all the time to just say a note that says, I wanted to see if there's anything else I can do to further my candidacy. Please let me know if I can send you something. I'm still extremely interested in the job, right? So you always want to do that. We never want to say, I'm just checking in. That word just is like nails on a chalkboard. It basically implies you didn't do your job and I'm having to follow up. So you want to be really careful in your phrasing. And then you send that and you wait to hear back and you sit on your hands and you get busy, because we all have job crushes, but you just try to stay really busy and wait to hear back. Because after that, it is in their court. They've missed the window. It's well past it. You sent the polite, positive note. Nothing more you can do until then. But Rosalind, you are not alone. And everyone out there, please understand, it is the most messed up time to be looking for work. It really is. It is so hard to get a job. And people come to us all the time at Work It Daily and say, I'm doing something wrong. I've been looking for work for 6 months and I haven't found anything, only to find out that if they've just been applying online, they essentially haven't been looking for work at all. So the fact that you are getting interviews tells me you are already doing better things, Rosalind. Now you're sitting in the waiting game because you're up against more competition. But don't lose faith. Stay busy. Look for more opportunities, and I'm sure you'll hear something soon.
Okay, and 2 more questions.
You got it.
Earlier last week, I believe you spoke about the Recruit In. I can't remember what you mentioned, and maybe other people want to know too, but
yeah.
How do as a person looking for work, how do you use that tool?
Yeah. So it's a really cool tool for those of you that haven't seen it. It's a free site you can go to, and it's recruitin.net, recruitin.net. And I know the team will throw it up in the chat. Recruiters use it to find candidates. And the reason they use it's a hack, because it's very expensive to have the LinkedIn recruiter service. There's a software they offer. It's very expensive, which gives you like unlimited searches to find talent. All of you, if you've ever searched too much on LinkedIn and been locked out, you know what I'm talking about. So recruiters use this site because it's free to search. And what they do is they put in keywords like, I'm looking for people that work at this company who have this job title, and I want to find all the people because I want to proactively reach out to them on LinkedIn and let them know we have this great opportunity. Recruiters do a lot of proactive search for candidates in order to find the right skill sets. So they can use recruitin.net to create a list through Google of all the LinkedIn profiles of people that match the criteria. So now let's reverse engineer that, job seekers. You can go over and all the companies on your bucket list. And if you don't know what a bucket list is, you need to stick with me because a bucket list is important these days. All the companies on your bucket list that you want to work for, you want to go put their names in, and you want to try to think of the titles of people that would be hiring managers for your skill set. So, if you're in accounting, you know that you probably want to find the CFO. And so you can put those in and it will literally start to find those profiles for you. And you're not getting pinged or dinged for searches on LinkedIn. So you can do multiple searches to find people. And this is a huge thing. We all know that's very, very important that you're out there connecting with people at the companies you want to work for. One, because they can give you great information and you can potentially establish a relationship and get referred in. And 80% of jobs today are via some form of referral. And 2, when a recruiter goes to your profile to look you up, it tells them how many people you're connected to at their company. So the more people you're connected to, the better. So this is a technique I highly recommend, and recruitin.net is the most brilliant hack for doing it.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, I'm sure I have more, but anyways, the last question I have is, what kind of resources and advice can you share if one wants to start their own business, whether part-time or full-time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I get that so much. And so for me, I'm always talking about a business of one and people choosing to either do contract gigs or full-time. But if you're looking to start a business, here's my one piece of advice, which is start it as a hobby career. Always start a side hustle first, because starting your own business and working for yourself takes 10 times as long as you think and 20 times the resources. I have seen so many people decide to quit and start from scratch. Any business, any venture capitalist, any big business will tell you that starting a business, there's a massive runway. And in the runway, you have to put in a ton of sweat equity, a ton of money in order to start to see a return on the investment. No joke, folks. For example, if you were to go buy a franchise right now, The franchise would disclose to you how long before you would see a profit. And a lot of times it's a year to 2 years. Meanwhile, you had to put all this money in up front. So think of it that way. The other thing you have to think about is that I think it's some astronomical number of like 2 out of 3 startups fail. So if you think of yourself as a startup, you can't risk putting everything all in right now, no income, only to not make it. And I see so many people do that. And we talk about running out of runway. They save up money and it lasts for 6 months and they're not even remotely profitable. Now they're out of money. They're desperate. They've got to go back and get a job, but they feel defeated, but they still want to make this business go. So they're trying to get interviews, but they can't get hired because the employer can tell that they're really looking to do this other full-time venture. It's not a good place to be. So the one piece of advice I will give you is you start it as a side hustle and get all of that learning and like operational structure and things out of the way. Do a gig or 2 here or there. If it's something that's like a project, take a week vacation from your work and do a staycation and do the project that way. I just cannot stress it enough that if you can build, that's how you can launch. It's certainly how I did it. When I left the corporate world and I wanted to start to build a career coaching practice, I actually had to fund that by doing consulting work for my former employers. So I did consulting work to pay the bills, but it freed me up to start the business. So this is the one thing I tell everyone. It is a hobby career first, and use that time to get through your runway and get yourself. And once you're structurally set up and you're starting to take income and predictable income, now you're looking at, okay, I could probably quit my job and do this full time. Okay. Does that help? Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Rosalind, awesome questions. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you very much.
It's so good to see you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
All right. We have a question from TikTok, which makes me so excited. I hope I'm going to say your name right. Camalie? Am I saying that right? Camalie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My first TikTok question. When is a good time to ask about salaries? Okay. We need to talk about this. Never in the first interview. Never in the first phone call. You do not ask. Now, if they tell you, awesome. That opens up the discussion. But if you don't hear anything about salary in the first call, that's a screen. So here's something that I really want job seekers to understand. There are different buyers of your services. You're a business of one, and you have to figure out each type of buyer, what they're looking for. In that first phone call, phone screen, in-person interview, you're meeting with what is called the technical buyer. So the technical buyer is making sure that you meet certain criteria and can move forward in the process. Their job, they're evaluated on how well they do their job by how good of a match they make to what they have set as requirements for the role. So all you're doing in that first interview, and it's usually a phone screen, is they're assessing you to figure out if you're moving forward. You don't want to throw a curveball in there by getting into the salary conversation. And people go, yeah, but JT, I don't want them to waste my time. Folks, sales 101 here. We gotta kiss a lot of frogs to get the prince or the princess. Okay. That's how this works. You are always going to put in more time than they are because you are selling your services. You want to earn thousands of dollars a year, right? So just remember that. I know a lot of people are like, this should be more equal. It actually shouldn't. You want something. And so you've got to think about that. So don't talk about it in the first one, because if you bring up what's the salary, you're tipping your cards and you're saying, that's the only thing that matters to me. That's what I care about most. This employer right now, they want to hear that you think they're awesome, that you love their product, their service, that you admire them, that you get their customers, that you're so excited about this opportunity. If they're interested in you, you're going to get a buy signal. And salespeople know what this is. A buy signal is them signaling they're interested in you. So things like, would you be available for an in-person interview in the next week? Or, what are you looking for in salary? So you should always be prepared to answer the salary question, but notice I don't say ask it. Now, if you get through the phone screen and now you go to a second interview, you get through that whole interview and no one's bringing it up and they come back to you with another round of interviews. Now is the appropriate time to inquire, because you definitely don't want to go through the entire process and be a mismatch. You've earned your credibility and essentially you've made it through the technical screen. You've made it through the first assessment. So now you're starting to go into the final candidate status. Before you go there, then it's appropriate to say, you know what? I am so excited about this opportunity. That's why this is hard for me to bring up, but I think it's important. We haven't talked about salary yet, and I would hate to go through this entire process and find out that we're not a fit. Could you give me the range for this position? That would be totally appropriate to ask at that point. but not until you've seen some buy signals where they're saying, oh yeah, we think you're one of our candidates. We think you're going to be one of the finalists. That's when you sit in the driver's seat, because right now your focus is on making it past the technical process. Okay. Awesome. Awesome question. Love it. All right. We've got another live caller. So excited. Brett. We've got Brett. Brett, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you
Hey,
very
Brett.
much.
Welcome. What's your question today?
Hi. So, my question. So, I'm a retired military commander, and I've had over 25 years working in logistics and leadership. And I've had 3 consecutive positions since completing my military career that were all eliminated during reorganizations. So, after having 3 leadership roles in 4 years, I feel like there's some book that America's read, and I missed the book. So I'm honestly just trying to figure out, what I should do because, yeah.
I hear you. I totally hear you. Well, so first of all, thank you for your service. Really appreciate it. We're so lucky to have men and women like you who are willing to serve the country. And that was quite 20 years of service. That's amazing. It's always an interesting transition for ex-military to come out. First of all, I think it's fantastic that you've had 3 roles. I'm sure they were all in logistics. And that is an area that's going through a lot of disruption right now, right? So it's one of those areas where companies are being able to figure out how to do more with less. And anytime they can use software or technology or things like that, they're going to do it as opposed to a person. So we see this happen a lot. It's also very shocking for somebody who's had a military career and worked at the same place for 20 years. So it can make you shake in your boots a little bit like, what am I doing wrong? Is this just a bad luck streak or what? And candidly, it is. It's a bad luck streak that you're dealing with, most definitely. But what it tells me is that we want to think a bit more strategically for you about what your next role should be. So a lot of people come out of the military and are stuck in we kind of call it the wisdom tax or the experience curve. So you've got all this great experience, you get into these roles, you solve problems, you fix things, and then the company's like, yeah, but we really didn't need you anymore, right? It's sort of like a project based. So there's 2 routes you can go at this point. And anybody else out there in this situation, listen up. The first one is for you to decide, I think that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a consultant and a project manager. And the good news is this is becoming more and more popular. There is a site that I'm going to recommend you all go to if this is of interest to you. It's called GoCatalant.com. GoCatalant. We'll type that in for you, GoCatalant.com. So this amazing company based out of Boston is building a site where you can go in and bid on projects for all sorts of specialized work like this. And it's very different. These are long-term projects where companies are going, you know what? We're not 100% sure we need a full-time employee for this. We might, but we definitely know we need somebody to do this for 6 months or 9 months or a year. So we're going to make it a contract. These are great opportunities for you to learn how to price yourself, right? And get yourself a gig with flexibility. And you're also listing yourself as an expert. And that's one route you can go. I've advised so many people, particularly over the age of 50 right now, to go do this. And I have one friend right now, every time I see him, he thanks me because he had the same thing happen 2 times in a row. Okay. So he's in engineering. He goes in, he fixes everything, gets laid off, goes to the next job. 18 months later, gets laid off, says to me, I don't want to do that again. So he got on Catalant, GoCatalant.com. He's now working, I kid you not, 1 day a week, making the same pay he was making full time. 1 day a week. Amazing. So definitely one avenue to pursue. Now, going back to it, Brett, if you really are still hung up on this idea of a full-time job, and I say hung up because you definitely sound like a prime candidate to consult. But if you want the full-time thing, what we have to do is go take a much deeper look at where things are going and where the long-term play is and pivot you. Now is the time to pivot. So you've got this great logistics background, but we know automation is coming. We need to think more about what are some of the roles that will always be in demand that you would have a high level of skill for that would never go out. And that's going to take some research. My advice to you, bucket list. Absolutely a bucket list. Find the 10 companies in your area that you most want to work for, regardless of whether or not you think they can hire you. The 10 companies that you admire what they do, you admire the customers that they serve, you love their principles, you love what they stand for. Not that you heard they're a great place to work. I want to know that you deeply relate right? Because you serve the military, so you understand serving a cause. I want you to go find your corporate cause that you want to serve. And then we want to work on networking you, Brett, into these 10 companies and having conversations and saying, okay, here's my career story. I served the military for 20 years. I love serving a cause. I got out, and I'll be honest, I've had 3 jobs in 4 years. Each one is getting restructured in logistics. But none of them I felt tied to the cause. And so now what I'm looking at is trying to figure out where I want to work and how I can be tied to the cause and really dedicate myself and be there long term to support the cause. So can you help me? What would that look like? How would my skills transfer? Can you see that? These are informational interviews, and you should have at least 2, preferably 5, at each of these 10 companies. So what you do is you rank the 10 companies, your favorite down to the least favorite. Meanwhile, they're all top 10. And you start from the bottom and go up. So to the number 10 company, find somebody, do 1 informational interview there. Then go up, do an informational interview there. And as you go through that process, you're going to get better and better at these informational interviews. So by the time you get to your number 1 pick, you're a pro and you know what to do and how to make a great impression. This is relationship building so that people can see you, Brett, for your potential, not for your past. And this is something that I know a lot of ex-military deal with because it's very hard to translate sometimes what you did in the military. So networking, having conversations, targeting is so vitally important because employers want to hire you. They know they're going to get a dedicated, loyal, consistent, accountable person, but they oftentimes just don't know how to fit you in. And they're not going to figure that out in a single interview. That's why the informational interviewing is giving you the network and spreading kind of the word about you within an organization so that when they start thinking about an opportunity, they can go, oh, but we met that Brett guy. And, he seems like he has a lot of skills. Oh, and he's ex-military. We know he's going to be dedicated. And he really wants to serve a mission. And he talked about our mission. So see how you're going to have to connect the dots for them by doing this process. To recap, it starts with targeting, then informational interviewing, and then telling your career story and tying it to the mission. And if you can do those 3 things, I think you're going to see better results. Does that help? All right. I think we lost him. Oh, we lost Brett. Okay. Well, hopefully you found it. Oh, thank you. Okay. So follow-up question, is Catalent for Canadians too? I am not 100% sure on that. That is a great question. I would say go over to Catalent, go catalent.com and see. It could be going international. I do know they just got another round of funding to expand the business. So I have very high hopes that it's going to get bigger and bigger. All right. We've got a question from Jonathan from LinkedIn. Hey, Jonathan, how does one manage multiple competing offers when unemployed? Okay. Well, so first of all, go Jonathan. Yeah. Multiple competing offers. Fantastic. Love it. So what you want to do is a checklist of each job. So you should have had a list of must-haves, nice-to-haves, and don't wants in your own career. And you want to see how many of those they meet. Because sometimes people just like an opportunity better and they can't really put their finger on why. And I am an engineer nerd. I like planning. I like fact. So for me, if you were sitting in front of me, we'd sit down and I'd say, okay, Jonathan, give me every single one of the things that matter to you most and rank them in order of priority. What's most important to you in a job all the way down. So what are the 10 things? Now I want you to scale on 1 to 5, 1 being not so great, 5 being perfect, each of these opportunities in each of these areas and tally up the points. And the reason I have you do that is because, again, I've had people come to me and they're like, I love this job. I think this is the one I want, but there's some things about this other job. Then we go through it and we find out the other job is by far a better fit. They're just loving how they were wooed at the company or a couple of benefits or perks. The company knew how to sell the opportunity. But when you peeled back the sales pitch and you really got down to the brass tacks of the job, he saw, oh my gosh, it's better over here. So that's what you need to do. You need to be as objective as possible. And you do that by having a solid career criteria list and then evaluating and grading each company for each thing and tallying it up. You'll be surprised. You will be surprised. So hopefully that helps. Good luck and congratulations. All right, Karen from YouTube. Hey, Karen. Can you please address job hunting over 50? I'm getting interviews but not offers and thinking this may be a factor, although the recruiters would never admit it. Thank you. Okay. All right. I have done several rants on this topic. So my friend, you're definitely going to want to go check out those rants. In fact, if you go to JT Talks Jobs, the hashtag on LinkedIn, I did an entire series, an entire live stream on interviewing over 40, and you would fall in that category. So please go back and watch that tutorial because it's way more in depth than what I'm going to cover right now. The main overarching theme I need you to hear, Karen, is if you're getting these interviews, clearly you are fit, meaning 100% fit, because the technical buyer isn't going to bring you in if you aren't, if you are not 100% fit. You probably might have even been a little bit over or overqualified. And this is the mistake that most over 50s make when they don't get the job. I'm not saying this is you, Karen, but hear me out. You go in the interview, you're so excited because 30 years ago, when they started out in their career, they had no experience, they knew nothing. Now they have all this experience, they know how to create value, they can't wait to work and apply value. So they get into the interview and they start telling them, well, I do this and I do that and I can do this and I've done that. This is how I fix this and this is how I fix that. And, they go into this whole sales mode to show everything and to tell everything they've ever done. They leave it, they're like air high-fiving. Oh, I totally crushed that interview. I wowed them. I had an answer for everything. I've done everything they look for. I'm totally getting that job. And it's literally like you drive home with a rejection box. What did you do wrong? It's all about how you presented yourself. Here's something we need to know, folks. Every year that we age in the workforce, our intellectual humility needs to increase. The more you know, the more humble you get. That is vitally, vitally important. Because when you're interviewing with other people, they need to see that intellectual humility and know that you don't have all the answers and know that you're willing to adapt and do it their way. People will say to me, okay, that manager was threatened by me because I knew more. No, that's you acting intellectually superior. And if that's the vibe you gave off in the interview, I wouldn't want to work with you either. And so many times people don't know they're giving off that vibe, that they're going to be high maintenance. When you go in and you tell, right? It's spray and pray. You're just like sitting there, oh, and I can do this. You sound like a jack or a Jill of all trades. And it actually comes across as desperate and overbearing. So intellectual humility, emotional intelligence are vital when you age and then you're going out on job interviews, especially as the moment you get over 40, right? You've got to start really ratcheting up that intellectual humility. Things like, I've been so lucky to have these experiences in my life, but I know I don't have all the answers, and all these other things. That's it. Hear me now? When did they lose me? I don't know. Okay, hang on, TikTokers. At least you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, see, I told you we were going to have technical issues. Crazy, crazy Mercury in retrograde. Hear me now? Huh. What? Well, it's supposed to be blinking or solid? Solid. All right, let's try this. Let's try unplugging. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can hear me. We can see it. You can hear me now. You can hear me now. So lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Don't remember. Oh, job search over 50. Yeah. Okay. So you're gonna have to go back and watch the tutorial over at JT Talks Jobs. But again, intellectual humility. The older you get, the more you say things like, well, this is what I've experienced in the past, but I know some things have changed. And, I'm so grateful that I've had all these experiences, but I also know that, it's really important to be in a new environment. If you go in saying you have all the answers and you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, they're not going to hire you. But if you can go in and say, I am so excited to have had the experiences I've had, but I'm also really looking to make new ones. I'm really still looking. I know I still have a lot more to learn. Every year that passes, I realize I have more to learn. Those are the things that you need to say. And we teach you how to do that. So definitely go check that out over there. But I can't stress it enough, folks. I hear people all the time over 50. Again, Karen, I'm not saying you do this, but they go, oh, they were threatened by my expertise. They thought I'd take their job. They weren't threatened. It was the vibe that you gave off unknowingly. You didn't mean it. That really was causing the problem. So anybody over 40, you have got to change your approach, your style to the interview in order to be selected. Okay. Awesome. All right. We've got a question from TikTok. Again, yay, TikTok. How do you feel about LinkedIn contacts? So LinkedIn contacts, are you just saying as in, connecting with people on LinkedIn? Are we talking about, using LinkedIn contacts like Sales Navigator? So LinkedIn has all these products that you could use that are supposed to kind of help you with stuff. But as far as LinkedIn contacts in general, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I mean, the day that it came out and I figured out what it was as a career coach, I flipped. I was like, this is going to be a game changer for people. And it has been. LinkedIn has literally changed how we develop our careers. What you need to know, though, is not a networking platform anymore. It is a social marketplace. Facebook is the white pages. We go find our friends. LinkedIn is the yellow pages. We go find businesses, or in this case, businesses of one. And so you have to know how to use LinkedIn and how to connect and have really reasonable expectations around what you're going to get out of LinkedIn. So for example, I always tell people, if you try to connect with 5 people on LinkedIn, you're killing it if you get one person to connect with you, because more than half of the people on there aren't actively on the platform every day, all day, like other social media platforms. Very easy to get missed. So you have to know that going in. You have to understand that piece of it and not get frustrated by it. And you also just have to take advantage of it and really build your relationships as much as you can. So I'm such an advocate of LinkedIn. I think it's an unbelievable resource. I just think people expect it to do things that it's not really designed to do anymore. Hopefully that helps. Okay, Doug says, how can I reach out to a company or a person I interviewed with that I know rejected me, but I'm still interested? Okay. So I'm going to guess in this case, Doug, I'm going to go scenario here. Going to guess that you applied online and you got rejected and you still want to let them know you're interested. Yes. So let's go. I'm going to go with that scenario. So there's a really good chance that a human being never saw your application. Less than 3% of people that apply ever move forward and get looked at. So my advice to you at this point, if you got the rejection, you've got nothing to lose to try to connect with that hiring manager. I would use recruitin.net, the website I was talking about earlier. I would try to get a hold of that person's direct email address. If you can, like, try to look up on the website how they create their emails at the company. And you probably could guess what that person's email is. And then, or you're going to be able to ask them to connect with you on LinkedIn, and maybe that'll work too. But before you do either of those things, I need you to write the most killer disruptive cover letter. So what's last in your resume and your LinkedIn profile is the ability to connect with an employer. And the reason you do not personalize your resume and you do not personalize your LinkedIn profile is that you get yourself screened out of opportunities. Personality should not be on those tools. And I know that I go against what a lot of other coaches say, especially on LinkedIn, but you need to understand recruiters are designed to screen you out. They literally are skimming your resume, skimming your LinkedIn profile. If they see anything that somehow gives them a sense, rubs them the wrong way, you're trying to be witty or funny or creative, or oversell yourself, and they don't like it, you're out. I mean, they got thousands of other applicants. You're out. So you've got to be factual. It's literally got to be boring, but it's got to be efficient and easy to read and absorb what skills you have. Where you bring yourself to life is in the cover letter. The cover letter is not where you talk about all the things you've accomplished. That's already on the resume and the LinkedIn profile. The cover letter is where you tell the story of how you feel connected to that employer. So you said you really want this job. I hope it's because you believe in the mission, or you've had personal experience with their product or service and it's changed your life in some way. You have to have an unbelievably compelling story about what would motivate you to go in and do that job every day, even when the job is hard. That, my friend, is what that person needs to hear. That's how you're going to differentiate yourself. Now, that takes work. It means you've got to step back and ask yourself, what really wows me about that company? Why do I relate and identify with what they do and why they do it? Do I relate with their customer base? What is it? How do I tell that story in a way that's really interesting and gets them at hello? And then how do I get that story in their hands? So it's called a disruptive cover letter. We have a whole, you can download the PDF, workadaily/resources. Go download it. You learn about disruptive cover letters. And now once you have this story, now you use that email that you figured out, or that after you get them to accept your connection on LinkedIn, you can send a PDF that way, and you send a PDF of the cover letter. Okay. The cover letter. You don't send your resume. You say, I wanted to connect with you because here's the story of why I feel so deeply, in sync with your company. Here's why I'm so passionate about what your company does. And that's it. That's like all that the email says. So they're going to be compelled to open up that cover letter, and boom, they get told the story. Like the opening sentence of the story of the cover letter, something like, I remember the first time I used your product, or I was 12 years old when I learned the power of what you do, right? Or your stuff. I remember one time I was working with a woman that wanted a job at Kraft Foods, and her opening line was, your mac and cheese helped me get through college. Like it was awesome. Like she just got him at hello and then just told this story and then said, this is why I want to work for you. She got the job. So you've got it. Disruptive cover letters, folks. We live in a storytelling time. Can't get around it. Social media, here to stay, right? We all are storytellers, every one of us. And people say, I'm not a good storyteller. Yes, you are. Every single human being can tell a good story in their own way. All you need to do is find that connection and then kind of pull it out of you and reveal it. And the beautiful thing about disruptive cover letters is you can really take the time to make sure that it feels right to you and then go get it in their hands, right? So if you're an introvert and you're like, I'm not good at storytelling on the spot, that's fine. Some of the most introverted people I know have written some of the most epic disruptive cover letters I've ever seen at Workadaily. It's really fun. We get to read really incredible disruptive cover letters because our members, once they write their cover letter, they send it to our coaching team, and our coaching team looks at it and says, yes, this is good. No, change this. No, this isn't hitting it, right? We teach everyone how to do that. So we get the honor and privilege to read some of the coolest stories ever. It's truly amazing. And I will tell you, those disruptive cover letters, those get people jobs all the time. I have people saying, I just got a call from my dream company. They said it was the best cover letter they ever read. Folks, put some heart and soul into your cover letters. Give them the story. Help them understand why you want to work there. Put some skin in the game. You want a multi-$1,000 job, right? Show them why you're different than all the others. Awesome. Okay. YouTube, I've got Othniel. I hope I'm saying that right. I just got disqualified for a position I applied to after I aced the interview because my job history looks terrible. What should I do in my case? I'm using a functional resume highlighting skills. So that's really confusing to me. As a recruiter, a former recruiter, that's really confusing to me because if your job history looks terrible, I saw that before you came in. So I should be over that fact. So obviously there was something, I'm going to be honest, in the interview that you said that wasn't so spectacular. Because if I saw that in advance and I still brought you in, I was looking for you to explain to me your work history in a way that would make me, as a technical buyer, say, yes, okay, I can move this person forward. So I know you're feeling like you did really well in the interview, but my gut's telling me you didn't do as well as you thought because you weren't able to convince them that whatever's going on in your job history, there was reason to it and it was something they can feel safe about. My advice is that you should focus on your interview prep, especially around your job history. And again, we have a free resource you can go check out all about interview questions and how to answer them. Go check that out. But yeah, this is a great example of people leaving and thinking, I nailed it. Keep in mind, folks, you go on an interview, they don't want to make you feel bad. They know that you came in to meet with them. So they'll smile and they'll nod, they'll be polite and make you feel like you nailed the interview. And then you go out the door and they're like, okay. But there were 7 other candidates were better. So you can nail an interview, but if the 6 other people nailed it more than you, you're still not getting the job. So that's why we have to be careful. You don't win in the interview process. Not that I think that you were saying that, but I thought it was a good thing to point out. And we have to be really careful because sometimes we think we nailed it and we didn't. And again, I don't know why they would bring you in if they had issue with the job history. So you want to be careful there. Okay. Another question from TikTok. Correct wording to get past the auto machines, the ATS. How do I know which words to use? Don't bother. Don't even bother. Please don't bother. Doesn't work. Anybody that tells you that you can game the ATS system, it does not work. And you are wasting valuable job search time trying to do that. It doesn't work. And on top of that, even if you do get through, I've seen people game it And then they get there and the recruiter realizes they gamed it and they get blacklisted. And that's a real thing. Make no mistake. You can be blacklisted and never work at a company because you game the system. So I would not try to do that. And I know there are companies out there that claim they can do it for you. It's a hack and it doesn't work, folks. It's kind of like us all wanting a magic pill to lose weight, that sort of thing. You got to do the work. But here's the thing. If you've got to do the work, then how about we do the work that's meaningful, and how about we make it worth something to you? How about you decide the 10 or 20 companies you'd most like to work for and why? How about you think about why you're in love with them and tell that creative story and get that in the hands of the right people and have meetings with people who work there and build relationships so that you land a job at your dream company. This is called proactive job search. And we have a job search checklist. So if you don't have a job search checklist and you're actively seeking jobs right now, you should go over there. Again, workitdaily.com/resources, download the job search checklist, go through that and be proactive. ATS is a waste of your time. Now, you can apply to a job and maybe they'll contact you, but that's just not where your job search should stop. That's just the beginning. Now you've got to go figure out, who do I know there? Who can I meet? How can I get connected? How can I try to get to the hiring manager? How can I get my disruptive cover letter in that hiring manager's hands? There are things that people just don't even realize. Like if you skip a field on an ATS, so if you just say, well, I don't have an answer for that, or I don't do that, disqualified. If you put not applicable, disqualified. Some of the ATSs, depending on how you answer, say there's 20 questions that you spent 45 minutes filling out, and there's 3 of them that are natural disqualifiers. If you didn't answer them right, disqualified. It's just not worth it. You can't game. It is such a waste of your time. It is much easier for you to pick where you want to work and drive the plan that way. Way more rewarding too, just for the record, way more rewarding. Awesome. Okay, take a quick sip here. Losing my voice. All right. Hey, Katrina on LinkedIn. I have heard that a degree doesn't matter. What if you just recently received one? How do you make it relevant in your resume if you're switching a career or industry? Ooh, that's a topic. Ooh, we could talk about for a while. Degrees. Yikes. All right. You have your degree. So for me, as an employer, that shows that you can be dedicated to something and stick with it for the 4 years and you got it. Very normal that people get degrees that they don't end up using in terms of the subject matter. But you learn some things in school. You learned a lot of interpersonal skills. You learned project management, right? Meeting deadlines. You learned certain transferable skills. Obviously, there's probably some courses that were very valuable. So that's the stuff that you're going to pull out and translate in a resume. So one of the techniques that we use, we have this really cool resume format at Work It Daily, where your top fold brands you, and you're able to identify yourself with a label and your transferable skill sets. And transferable skill sets are skill sets that are measurable. I actually did a whole session on this show. Go back to JT Talks Jobs. We talk about transferable skills and how to select them. They're hard skills, not soft skills. Saying you're a great team player, not a transferable skill, not a hard skill, right? It's a soft skill. I want you to have it. But when I'm first evaluating you and you have a new degree and not a lot of experience, I'm trying to get a handle on your hard skills. What are the things that I could quantify or measure or know that you would give me a return on my investment if I hired you? So you have to work with somebody and figure out what those are and get those front and center on the resume. And that's because you have 6 seconds. Studies show this, 6 seconds. So when they open that resume, that top fold or the top of your LinkedIn profile, 6 seconds, most important part of your resume and LinkedIn profile, top fold. Because in that time, I'm assessing you. And as a technical buyer, I'm going check, 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 check. Oh, okay. She's got the 6 things I need. I'm going to look at the rest of the resume. So that's why you've got to brand that way. And then you're going to build out the rest of the resume to support those key skill sets. Now, when you're new and you don't have the experience, you're going to get tossed from the ATS 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10. You are a prime candidate for a proactive job search. You're going to have to go around the applicant tracking system and talk to somebody so that you can slide in to their email your disruptive cover letter, your story about why you're connected to them, and your resume. And the reason for that is because if I just look at your resume, I'm going to go, you're not a fit, and toss it. But if before I read that resume, I have this really cool story from you about how your sister, the drug that they sell at their pharmaceutical company saved your sister's life, or how, you were able to make money to pay for school with digital marketing. Like, you just got to tell the story that connects to them. If I read that first, I like you because you get us. So now I look at your resume and go, well, doesn't have everything we're looking for, but really love that story. Obviously, this person has the internal motivation. Let's just interview. See? That's why you need these disruptive cover letters, people. They are game changers. Storytelling is the name of the game in Job Search 2020. I am not kidding you. Storytelling is it. That is how you get hired. Companies need to see and feel that you get them. And that's never going to happen on a resume or a LinkedIn profile. And you don't want it to, because you got to get past the technical buyer. Is that making sense to everybody? Again, this is all job search technique that you need to know. And don't beat yourself up, right? School teaches us everything except how to get the job and build a career. It blows my mind. I ranted this morning on TikTok about this. You need to know that we go use professionals for everything in our life to get better. But for some reason, nobody thinks to use a career coach. For some reason, everybody thinks they're supposed to figure out this career thing themselves. And when they don't, they think they're some kind of failure. You are not a failure. You've just never been coached. You need the right information at the right time, and that'll work. Awesome. All right. I hope I say this right. Sheila D. Do your services help college students with applying for internships? Yes, we get a ton, actually. I got to tell you, I love college students in our program because they've been raised on technology. So we have our own phone app. If I have my phone with me, I do have my phone. It's in front of me. I'm on there. Hi, TikTok. So we have our own phone app. And of course, all the college students use the phone app. They get it. But we are, it's very easy to use our service, right? So you sign up and you get instant access to our platform, and you do two things right out of the gate. Step one is you go in and you message the coaching team and say, hey, I'm here and this is what I'm trying to do. And they usually say, I want to get an internship. And step two is you go right over to the job search plan and you start watching video tutorials. And each exercise is completed and you send your results to the coaching team and they go, yep, you did that right. Keep going. Oh, do this, right? So we go through it. We figure out what you want to do. You get your personal branding statement, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, your interview prep. And students know how to do this because it's class, right? And we're the professor. And instead of getting graded, we just make sure that they get it perfect so that they can get an A on every project. And then when they're through it all, they're ready to go. So yeah, we love working with students looking for internships. And the beautiful thing about it is they have no bad habits. And once they do this, they get how it works. And so it's very easy to rinse and repeat. In fact, one last question on that. I'm going to run over and get in trouble. My team's going to be mad at me. So I had a kid and he went through 3 years of school for mechanical engineering and had to take an accounting class in the 3rd year and fell in love with it. Like fell in love with it. And so he went and took accounting classes so that he could graduate because his parents were going to kill him if he didn't get this mechanical engineering degree, right? But literally on his own, got the accounting minor in order and to graduate. And he's like, he came to me and said, in secret, I'm, going to graduate and I want to get a job in accounting, not mechanical engineering. So I got to get a job that my parents will be okay with. So, this very well-known, because I can't name the software company, very well-known, you would know the accounting software company that many people use for accounting and their taxes, was in the town that he lived in, right? Big operation there. So he said, I saw an internship and I want to see if I can get it, but I'm a mechanical engineer. All these like full-on accounting majors are going to apply for this job. So he and I worked together on the most amazing disruptive cover letter about his story of falling in love with accounting and what it's like to fall in love with accounting when you're mechanical engineering and all this stuff. We just told this really compelling, awesome story and pulled it together and got it in the hands of the hiring managers for the internship program. He, no joke, gets the internship. Right now, they're giving out I think it was 20, right? But there were hundreds of kids applying for this internship. And they were like, your story was so amazing. Like, we had to have you. So he starts the summer internship, right? He's a month into the summer internship because half of the kids, right, are going back to school and half of them are like him, took an internship to try to get their foot in the door. He's a month in. It's supposed to be like a 3-month internship. He's a month in and they come to him and say, you're crushing it. We have an entry-level opening that just came up and we want to give it to you. And he went to work for them. And he was fine. He was making great money, same as he would have been making in engineering. His parents were happy. All was good in the hood. But I tell that story because, he knew to come get help. And he didn't challenge us. He didn't say, I don't know, but I don't want to look stupid telling this story, or I don't want to look out of place. My biggest challenge in our platform is as people get older, they have so much pride and they're so afraid to look silly that sometimes they don't want to do some of these techniques. Like I literally had a guy say, when I got to the disruptive cover letter, my wife and I looked at each other and said, she's nuts. I'm not doing this. And then we decided she's been right up to this point. So why don't we do 3 and see what happens? He got literally all 3 responded to him Did phone interviews with all of them, moved forward with 2 and got competing job offers. Just saying. Disruptive cover letter storytelling is the key to Job Search 2020. And I will end on that note because they're like, wrap it up, JT, get off the phone. Anyways, thank you everyone for stopping by today. We had a great week. We're so happy to be with you. We'll be back next week, of course. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get notifications. And in my LinkedIn feed, we talk about some of the upcoming shows and topics. If you've got ideas for topics, if there's things you want me to deep dive into, give you mini courses on, that's what we do. Please share them in the comments below. My team is tracking all of that. And we will make sure that we will add some of those topics to the list. The ones that we get the most questions about, we will answer. But please, here's the thing. You're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it can be really hard to be surrounded by people that can help you in your career. Right? Sometimes we're surrounded by people who are competing against us and don't have our best interests at heart. But now we have this beautiful thing called the internet. And you can follow social media sites where it's all about empowering you. And we are about empowering you, 1 million of you, to grow your career. So follow us on social media, help us keep you inspired, focused, come to these sessions, and let's grow your career together. Okay? All right. You guys have been the best. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.